frequent participation as a panelist for various JPNJ English language programs. Okay, praise to Allah, we have been graced by the chance to gather in this momentous ceremony. Okay. Before we move on, let us begin with the recitation of Kitab Al-Fatiha. Okay, without further ado, I welcome Puan Noratika to deliver her insights.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shafiq. Before we start, I'm just going to check my sound level. Please raise your hand if you can hear me very clearly. All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you for those students who already raised their hands. Thank you very much. Okay, just to let you know, I've opened the Q&A activity there. So if you have any question, you can post a question there once we're ready, or you can always ask in the chat section, right? Okay, so what we are going to do today is that we are going to focus on two things. I'm expecting this to start at 2:30, but my bad, I think I read the letter quite wrongly. Okay, so we are going to start with writing first, because I think writing needs quite a lot of time for me to explain. So we are going to start with writing, and then during speaking session, we are going to do a little bit of exercise with speaking, and also I'm going to sort of give you tips on how to score well for your writing and speaking as well. Okay, so for the writing part, this is going to be a lot of listening. So if you can take down notes and perhaps screen capture any of the screens that you think useful, please do so. Okay. Without wasting any more of our time, I'm just going to let you know that this session is recorded. Later, at the end of the session, I'm going to share with you my YouTube channel so that you can watch this recording once they are uploaded in my YouTube channel. Okay, so everybody who's probably missing today, because I know that a lot of Form 5 students and as well as Form 4 students, they're having their vaccines now. So no worries, I'm going to have this recorded, and once you have time, you can watch it during your own time. All right, so I'm just going to share with you the screen now. Okay, so without wasting any more of our time, I think that most of your teachers, I think all of your teachers have mentioned that for our SPM English this year, it's going to be, okay, all right, so compared to from previous years of SPM, okay, this year, the whole SPM essay is going to be in 4 papers, okay? During KBSM, it was 2 papers, only paper 1 and paper 2. Okay, paper 1 is what we call, for KBSM, paper 1 is your writing, paper 2 is your reading comprehension, and literature as well as others as well, okay? Right, so, but for this year and in the coming years, SPM papers will look like this, okay? If you have heard MUAT before, it almost has the resemblance of MUAT, okay? Whereby all the 4 skills have given the equal importance, okay? Meaning to say that all 4 skills have equal weightage, right? For reading skills, the 25% will be counted from your whole grade, as well as writing skill, speaking skill, and listening skills. All these skills will bear different total marks, but they will bear the same weightage, meaning to say that for each of the skills here, 25% of the marks that you've got will be contributing to the whole grade of your SPM English paper. Okay, so for English this time, there's no such thing as writing is more important than reading, or perhaps listening is more important than speaking. All skills are very important for you to master. Okay, so it is important that you know that all skills need to be covered well so that you can score better in your SPM. Okay, right. Okay, so for SPM level, okay, you are expected to be at what we call the B2 level of upper intermediate, right? So for B2 level, okay, you're expected to understand the main ideas of complex text on both concrete and abstract text. Okay, this one is more on reading. The second one can interact with a degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible. Okay, this one is for speaking. Later, we are going to talk about this. And for this session, for this writing session, we are going to focus on can produce clear, detailed text on a wide range of subjects and explain a viewpoint on a topical issue, giving the advantages and disadvantages of various options. Okay, for this learning standard, for B2, this learning standard is what we call a bit loaded. Loaded means to say that, okay, there are a lot of things that you need to achieve in those learning standard, but fear not, that is one we call one comprehensive learning standard. Later, we are going to look at it more in the smaller parts later. Okay. Right. So for independent user, you're expected to achieve this in your writing: clear, detailed text on a wide range of subjects. Okay. Okay. For the construct, okay, for membaca, for reading, I'm just going to give you a comparison here. Okay, the level that you're expected to do is memahami, understanding, mengaplikasi, okay, applying, analysis, analyzing, and menilai, assessing. All right, but however, for menulis, the level just got higher. Okay, it starts with mengaplikasi and then goes on with menganalisis, menilai, and then the highest level is the mencipta. So when you are writing, you are expected to create. Okay, so it is I think it's worth noting that of all the 4 papers, writing has to be the most challenging. Okay, and of course, the pengetahuan sistem bahasa and nilai is also very important. Nilai here means the moral value. Okay, so whatever you write, for example, if you're writing a story, if you're writing, especially a story, because you need some sort of lesson there, so it's very important that you state the moral value there. Or even when you are writing a film review. Okay, later I'll show you how it works, okay? All right, so for writing test tasks, I'm sure that you all know this already. Okay. So for writing tasks, there are 3 parts, okay? For part 1, compulsory tasks, you don't have any other choice for this question. You only have 1 question to answer this one. Okay, for part 1, candidates have to write an email to a friend about 80 words. Okay, for part 1, compulsory task, this is something that you have seen in your PT3, and I believe that this batch you managed to sit for your PT3, right? So part 1 is there's no different from the part 1 that you have for PT3, but then there are differences in terms of level. Later I'll explain to you. All right, part 2, compulsory task, you have to write an essay about 150 words. Again, this is quite similar with your PT3 paper where you have to answer, I think it's about 120 words, right, for your PT3, but for your SPM, for part 2, you're going to write in about 150 words, okay? Again, 80 words and 150 words is not that long, okay? So please make sure that you manage to have such good control of language when you are writing for part 1 and part 2. Okay, for part 1 and part 2, it's not quite difficult for students like you to score because it's something that you have done previously and you have done this in exercise for repeatedly. So I don't think that part 1 and part 2 should be a problem for you. However, the real challenge is posed in part 3. Okay, so in part 3, compared to part 1 and part 2, part 3 you have a few questions that you need to read and choose. Okay, so candidates will have a choice of tasks. Okay, so part 3, this part has 3 questions or tasks to choose from. Okay, so meaning to say that they have 3 questions, you choose 1. Can you answer all? Of course you can, but would that affect the time management that you have for whole paper? Please remember that part 1, 2, and 3, you have to get it done by 1.5 hours. Do you think you have time to write more than 1 essay for part 3? Okay, that is a question that you need to answer yourself. Okay, because some students, they think that oh, my essay is not strong enough, so I need to write another one for part 3. Of course you can if you have time, but if you don't, please focus on one question that you think that you can score well, because that's the thing that you need to focus on. Okay, so for part 3, the task types may include an article. Article means article lah, a review, and a report or a story, and candidates have to choose one. Okay, they have to write about 250 words. This is the longest. But I think compared to your seniors, KBSM, although you have 3 tasks for CFR SPM, I think that you have better chance in getting better marks in terms of your writing paper, because the tasks are varied. Okay, so you are being assessed based on 3 questions, not just in 2 questions in the previous format whereby you have to answer. One is in the formatted question, another one is what we call extensive writing, and those extensive writing expected you to write 350 words that your senior had to do. But for your case, you do not have to write such long essay. You just have to bear in your mind that you have to answer 80 words of essay message for part 1. Part 2 is 150 words, and part 3 is 250 words. Okay, not that difficult, right? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so for interaction written, okay, so when we examiners mark, we will look at this level. Okay, so when you are at your Form 5, okay, you are expected to be somewhere here. You're at B1, but very high B1. You are also encouraged to already be here. And if you can be here, that will be the best choice that you can have as a Form 5 students for SPM 1119. Okay, so for A2 level, okay, we will test you on A2 level as well. So that will be later. I will explain where that we test A2 and B1, and for B2 and C1. Okay, so for B1, okay, let's look at the descriptor for B1. Okay, you can write personal letters, okay, personal letters and notes asking for conveying simple information of immediate relevance. Immediate relevance means something yang relevant kepada awak. Okay, it could be about school, it could be about friends, it could be about hobby, it could be something very close to you, or it could be about families. Okay, getting across the point he or she feels to be important. All right, let's look at the next descriptor for B1. Okay, can convey information and ideas on abstract as well as concrete topics, check information and ask about or explain problems with reasonable precision. Okay, I think this one is more. This one is for. I think this one is for part 1. Okay, this one is part 2. And the highest would be can express news and views effectively in writing and relate to those of others. This one is in part 3 of the essay question. Okay. For C1, okay, if it's a bonus, if you can achieve this, you can express yourself with clarity and precision relating to addressee flexibly and effectively, meaning that of all the parts that you are doing, you manage to relate to your audience, to the reader of the essay very well. With such clarity means that you are clear, precise, tepat, and relating to addressee, you are achieving C1 already. Okay, all right. I know this is a bit of a mumbo jumbo, and I think that your teachers would probably have explained this, but I'm just going to explain this a little bit more because I think this is important in giving you such background information of how we are going to mark your work or your exam. Okay, so for part 1, example task. Okay, I've mentioned this now. Part 1 is almost like your PT3 paper. Okay, you received an email from your new friend, Amy, who has just moved to your hometown. Okay, hi, the school holiday is finally here. Let's go for a picnic with our friends. Again, I'm sure you have seen this before. Okay, the topic is very familiar to you, a picnic. Okay, a picnic with our friends. Where shall we go and what can we do there? What should we bring? Okay, I'll be waiting for your reply. Bye. Okay, now write an email to your friend in about 80 words. You need to write your answer below. Okay, so this is how the question would look like. They will pose you some sort of a problem, and you are going to solve that problem for the person who's asking the problem. Okay? Okay, for part 2, the question is a bit like this. Right, you must answer this question. Write your answer in 125 to 150 words in an appropriate style. The key here is appropriate style. Okay, so for question 2, normally they ask you to write an essay. Okay, your class has been discussing how they spend their money, and your teacher has asked you to write an essay about what would you spend your money on. Okay, in your essay, you should write about what would you like to buy, reasons for your choice, and where do you usually buy these things. Okay, write your essay using all the notes and giving reasons for your point of view. So part 2, they will give something a bit of what we call opinion, or something a bit of factual. But the most important thing is, whatever the questions that they are giving you, you need to be able to answer all the prompts stated here. Okay, I'm not going to roll a dice and then say that, oh, perhaps not all points that need to be used. I would advise you to use all the points, because we want to maximize our chance to get better marks every single time. Okay, so please, when you are looking at question 2, make sure that you know what the question is asking, in this case, how they spend their money, and the prompts that comes with it. What would you like to buy, the reasons for your choice, and where do you usually buy these things? Okay, so these are very important when it comes to part 2, your essay. All right, let's move on to part 3. Okay, part 3 is where I call the most challenging part. Okay, so they have 3 choices of questions. Okay, normally in the ones that you have seen in your in the workbook in the market right now, the SPM focused workbook in the market right now, they are mostly focused on articles, film review, and story. But there are 2 other genres that also been taught in Form 4 and Form 5 that has not been touched yet by any of those books and even LPM so far. Okay, those genres are report and formal essay. Okay, let's not go into that in depth now. Let's look at part 3 now for article. Okay, as for article, okay, you have, in this case, it's talking about my school canteen. Okay, right, what other types of food would you like to be served, and what special facilities should your canteen have, and how can you improve your canteen? Okay, so you need to write an article answering these questions. The best article will be displayed in the school magazine, and you need to write your article. Okay, so what I need to highlight for when you are writing article is that articles can come in any forms. It doesn't have to be you suggesting improvement in your school. It could be you talking about article about your favorite destination, your favorite holiday destination, for example. So it shouldn't be a problem to you to write an article, as long as you know the structure that they have provided in the syllabus, and then follow all the prompts given, and inshallah you manage to get at least all the content points correct, all 5 of the content points. For communicative achievement, organization, and language, later we'll discuss it further. Okay, so that's also an example task for a review. Okay, have you watched any interesting movies lately? Send us your movie review. Okay, so when you are writing about movie review, you need to talk about what you enjoy about the movie. Okay, say what you enjoy about the movie. All right, so writing a review is something that I feel quite nervous about, especially when it comes to my students, because review is something that we call quite technical. Compared to article and story, reviews have quite technical vocabulary and grammar as well for you to score very high. I'll give you an example. Okay, say what you enjoyed about the movie. Let's say you want to talk about the actors or the actresses. Okay, what do we call those people? Actor, actresses. Okay, the right term for that is casts, C-A-S-T-S. So if you know the specific vocabulary for that, that will award you such high marks for vocabulary. Meaning that you have such precision when you are explaining the part of the movie that you enjoyed the most. Okay. right? So it could be about cast, meaning that you like the actors and actresses, or perhaps you like the way that the movie looked. So instead of saying that the way that the movie looked, you can use the word cinematography. So again, for reviews, it's quite technical. If you are the kind of a movie buff that you like to watch movie reviews on YouTube, or perhaps you like to read them on newspaper, I know that's old-fashioned, but that's where you can get such a great vocabulary and grammar structure. Okay, so if you want to write about movie review, perhaps you can read them on newspaper online, because they have quite good sentence structure compared to the videos, YouTube videos that you watch based on the movies that you like. Okay. Would you recommend the movie to your friends? Okay, this is when you give recommendation to your friends, whether this is something that you would suggest to your friends to watch. For example, if you give a movie 9 out of 10, of course you are going to recommend the movie to your friends. And when writing movie review, it's okay if you want to write something negative as well. For example, it doesn't have to be about raving good reviews about a film. It could be about how horrible a film is. But even if you're writing about how horrible a film is, it has to be with such great detail, and it has to have such precise and accurate vocabulary. Okay? Right, and it goes on with the best reviews will be published in our newsletter, and you need to write your review. Okay, the next one is example task of a story. Okay, your teacher has asked you to write a story for a school magazine. The story must have the title "A Dream Comes True." Okay, your story should include a description of the dream and how the dream is achieved. Okay, so I know that this statement is quite clear for even for any of us, but the word dream itself can carry different meaning. Okay, some of you think that dream here is talking about ultimate goal or the ultimate ambition that you have. Okay, some of you think that this is actually something that you experience during your sleep. Okay, so in this question, they're asking about your goal, your ambition, what you want to do that actually comes true. Okay, so be very careful when you are writing the story. I know that story is something that majority of the students love to choose, because perhaps it doesn't have specific structure, or it doesn't need all those technical vocabulary, but it needs you to interpret this question very well. And that is very important when it comes to CFR. Okay, so be very careful when you're choosing story question. Okay. Okay, this is what I'm talking about, report. Okay, so your teacher has asked you to write a report for your club's recent activity. Okay, in your report, you should include where and when the activity was held, what you did during the activity, and what can be done to improve the activity. So this one is something very big. It's because, like I mentioned, there's no mention of a report being out for SPM yet. But if I were you, I would prepare myself to know what kind of structure of report is. I know that in 3 questions you can choose one, but we may never know that somehow on that day you need to choose report, because you know what is it that you're going to write for that report, except that you probably did not remember the structure. Okay, so please familiarize yourself with report as well, although in all those books in the market they haven't even included the question for report yet. Okay, so the level of the SPM writing test. Okay, like I mentioned just now, we primarily the marker targets CFR B1 and until B2, and the highest results means that all the good bands, all the four bands that manage to get a 5, we award students with a level of C1. Okay, part 1 is marked at A2 and B1 level, still quite low. Okay, very easy to get marks for part 1. Part 2 is marked at B1 and B2 level, moves a bit higher, but still very achievable. And part 3 is marked at B2 and C1 level. Okay, so still, I have to again remind you that part 3 is going to be the most challenging part. So if I were you, I would probably have more practice on part 3. Okay, the assessment scales, there is a separate scale for each part of the test. Okay, the exam is criterion reference, so based on can-do statements, based on the criteria that they have provided for us when we mark your work. Okay, And in line with the positive can-do ethos of the CFR, the descriptors aim to describe communicative ability rather than inability. So, meaning to say that we are going to focus on the good things about your essay, meaning the things that you can do with your essay rather than what you can't do. So, again, not be very nervous about it. We are not going to look for faults. We are going to look for the good ones so that we can help you to get good marks. Okay, but to help us to do that, you need to be good lah. Okay. All right. So the assessment scales there. We have content. I think this already been explained by your teachers. Content is C, overall task fulfillment. Communicative achievement, CA, organization, O, and language, L. Okay, so when we mark your essay, we use this as annotation. Okay, and when we mark your essay, we are not going to annotate the wrong ones. We are going just to go forward so straight. We're going to find what you did right for the essay rather than what you did wrong. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to explain to you a little bit what is content. Okay, so when we mark for content, like I've mentioned, for school like you, content should not be a problem. It should be a given 5 for you. 5 is the highest band lah. Okay, so content, target reader is completely informed of the relevant points and ask of you in your piece of writing, and there is nothing irrelevant. Okay, meaning to say that when you are writing, make sure that all that you have written is relevant to the questions. Do not derail away from the questions. Okay. Okay, for communicative achievement, okay, we are going to talk about 3 things. Okay, first is correct text type. It's genre, meaning that is the tone of the writing correct? Is the structure, or what the Malaysian likes to use, format, correct? Okay, that would fall under communicative achievement. Okay, must be written with the correct register and must be laid out accordingly. And then we are going to talk about the intelligence of the ideas, meaning that's the idea that you have intelligent. Intelligent here means that does it hold any what we call merit when it comes to you elaborating your content, for example. Okay, and how clearly are the ideas explained? Are they flow well? Are they flow smoothly, or what we call flawlessly? Okay. Organization. Okay, we use cohesive devices. I think you know this already. Cohesive devices such as transitions. Okay, help the reader to follow the ideas in your piece of writing, which in turn helps with the readability of your writing task. Okay, they have to be well planned and well organized and well paragraphed. I think that for your generation, most of you quite struggle with paragraphing skill. I do not know why. I'm currently trying to figure out why that. I'm not sure about your school, but my school, they can write very well, but their paragraphing skills are questionable. I did not know where did they pick up that bad habit, but please make sure that your writing is well paragraphed, meaning that you know how to organize your points in a paragraph, in paragraphs, okay, in coherent paragraphs. Okay. For language, okay, you need to demonstrate a high level of simple and complex grammar, okay, in your writing task, which must be done accurately. Okay, it's not just your ability to attempt to write complex grammar, but you need to be able to do that correctly, and you'll be able to use less common lexis. Less common lexis means it doesn't have to be very technical, but it has to be accurate. The lexis means that your vocabulary has to be accurate. Okay. All right, so this is how we overlap skills when we are marking your work, you're marking your paper. Okay, as you can see for task 1, the level to get all 5 is only at B1. Okay, so all 5, you're already at B1 level. Easy to get all 5 for part 1. For part 2, we expected you to be in B2, okay, for all level. For content, communicative achievement, organization, as well as language. And for part 3, as you can see, C1, it just gets higher. Okay, was part 3, you're expected to get all 5 only if you manage to achieve C1. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is how we compare marking. Okay, so let's look at part 3. Okay, part 3, part 2, and part 1. Okay, let's look at, we are talking about connectors, just connectors here. Okay, let's look at part 1. Let's say the student get a 5 for connectors. Connectors means organization, right? So let's look at part 3. Okay, for part 3, if you are using simple connectors and limited number of cohesive devices appropriately, you only get a 1. Okay, meaning to say that, for example, for part 3, because it's quite a long essay, 250 words, and you are using the same connectors, for instance, repetitively using besides, furthermore, okay, you do not show any variety, and it's very limited, you only stick to besides and furthermore, then you're going to get a 1. Or perhaps you did not even use besides and furthermore, perhaps you use and also, and just using all those two. So you'll only get a 1. But if you use and also well for part 1, you can get a 5. Okay, that's how the marking moves gradually. The strictness of marking moves gradually. Okay? So let's see part 2. The text is generally organized and coherent using a variety of cohesive devices. So instead of using and also, you perhaps use, like I mentioned just now, and also with, besides, furthermore, moreover. Okay, so for part 2, 5 no problem for organization. But for part 3, you only get a 3. Okay, for part 3, okay, if you want to get a 5, you need to have text is well organized and coherent using a variety of cohesive devices with a generally good effect. Meaning that not only you'll be able to use all those cohesive devices, but they will give such great effect on your essay, meaning to say that they are being used accurately. Okay, for instance, if you are using in spite of or despite of, you know what's the difference between the two. Okay, that's how you get a strong 5 mark for example, in this case, organization. Okay, right. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go through this very quickly. Okay. Okay, we're talking about extract score of 3 for A2. Okay. For content, if you've got minor irrelevances and or omissions may be present, meaning to say that in all the questions that perhaps you've missed out one detail, you still get a 3 for your content. Okay. For a 3 in communicative achievement, you can get a 3 for part 1 is communicate simple ideas in simple ways. You can get a 3. For organization, if you use basic high frequency connectors, means that you use and a lot in your part 1, you can get a 3. And for your language, if you use basic vocabulary and some degree of control, errors may impede meanings, meaning to say some errors perhaps make you question the meaning of what you're trying to say, but it's not always, then you can get a 3 for language, but that is for part 1. Okay, let's look at part 2. As I mentioned that we go stricter part by part, right? So for part 2, okay, minor irrelevances or omissions may be present. Again, it's still forgivable. You can get a content of 3 there. We mentioned that minor irrelevances, it could be that you derailed a bit or perhaps you didn't write about 1 point. Okay, you can get a 3 for part 2. Okay, and then for communicative achievement, okay, using the conventions of the communicative task reasonably appropriately. Okay, meaning to say that for part 1 to get a 3, it's quite simple. You can just communicate in simple ideas in simple ways. But for part 2, you need to be able to use the conventions of the communicative tasks, meaning to say that your essay can be read and can be understood quite well. Quite well, not that well, but quite well. Okay? Organization means that a limited number of cohesive devices appropriately. Okay, so meaning to say that you use cohesive devices and it's limited, but it is quite effective. So you can get a 3 for organization for part 2. Part 2 means the essay. Part 1 is the informal email or message. Part 2 is the essay. Okay? And then use basic vocabulary appropriately. with a good degree of control, and while errors are noticeable, meaning can still be determined. Okay, that is language. Okay, for part 3, as I mentioned, the most challenging part. Okay, minor irrelevances or omissions may be present. Again, for content, they are quite consistent. If you have minor irrelevances or perhaps you missed one small detail, you still can get a 3 for content. Okay, to get a 3 for communicative achievement is that to use the conventions of the communicative task and hold the reader's attention, meaning to say that you're able to make me want to read your essay and communicate straightforward ideas appropriately. Meaning to say that for communicative achievement, to get a 3, when I read your essay, I'll be able to finish your essay voluntarily without me feeling what we call suffered through all the text. Meaning that I can still read your essay all throughout from the beginning to the end without any problem. Okay, meaning to say that you have quite good flow of ideas. Okay, as for organization, okay, text is generally well organized and coherent using a variety of cohesive devices. In this case, as you can see, well organized and coherent using a variety of cohesive devices. Although it's well organized and coherent, you can only get a 3 for organization. Remember, to get a 5, you need to have well organized and coherent with great variety and also with good fact. Okay, that's how you get to score a 5 for organization for part 3. Okay, for language, okay, you need to use a range of everyday vocabulary with occasional inappropriate use of less common texts. Okay, use a range of simple and some complex grammatical forms with a good degree of control, and errors do not impede communication. Okay, that's how you get a 3 for a language for part 3. Okay. Right, so we're moving on to email tasks now for part 1. Okay, when we are marking part 1, this is what we are using. Okay, again, we are using looking at B1, B2, and C1 as well. Okay, so but for part 1, we are only expected to be here, B1. So you can write personal letters, giving news and expressing thoughts about abstract or cultural topics such as music and films. Okay, write personal letters describing experiences, feelings, and events in some detail. Okay, so for part 1, this is where we want you to be lah. Okay. Okay, so again, I would suggest for SMKA, Bandar it shouldn't be a problem for you for part 1 to get a B1 at least. Okay. You can take messages, communicating inquiries, explaining problems, and write notes conveying simple information of immediate relevance to friends, service people, teachers, and others who feature in his or her everyday life. Okay, meaning to say that for B1 is something about very close to us. They're not going to ask you about things that very far from us. It's something about us, about family, about your hobby, about your friends, about how you spend your free time, etc. Okay, so again, part 1 shouldn't be a problem for you to score. Okay, let's look at the part 1 email task. Okay, again, obligatory task, you must complete it, 80 words, and it's designed for all proficiency levels, okay, for everyone, meaning that even for part 1, even the weakest candidate can answer the question. Okay, that is the purpose of part 1. Okay. Okay, it will typically require a personal and concrete response in general, social, and everyday matters. Okay, this is how we mark. It's a repetition from the one that I had just now. Okay, so again, for Band 5, this is what we are aiming for part 1 for SMKA Bandar, I'm sure. Okay, the content has to be relevant to the task. Okay, target is fully informed, target reader is fully informed. Communicate straightforward ideas using conventions of the communicative task reasonably and appropriately. Organization uses simple connectors. Yes, simple connectors and limited number of cohesive devices. Again, for part 1, if it's only limited number of cohesive devices, you are safe. Okay, make sure that you are using them. Do not use at all. Please use a simple one. Okay, if you forgot any of the cohesive devices, perhaps you can. The word "and" itself is a cohesive devices. Okay, so use your cohesive devices, and even if it's limited number, it's still safe and you can get a 5 for organization for part 1. Okay. The language, again, basic vocabulary, simple grammatical forms with a good degree of control, meaning to say that simple grammatical forms like your subject-verb agreement, for example, she goes to school every day, okay, she went to the mall yesterday. So all those simple form, you manage to do it correctly. Then you can get a 5 for part 1, okay? There are some noticeable errors, meaning that can still be determined. Again, errors are fine as long as they did not impede the meaning for part 1, okay, for language. Okay, let's look a bit of the examples now. Okay, to get a band 3 for part 1, again, like I mentioned just now, omissions, some omissions might be present, and to get a 3 for communicative achievement, communicate simple ideas in simple ways, meaning sometimes you perhaps repeat the same structures. I like to eat rambutan. I like to eat mango. Okay, so if you do that repetitively, then you may get a 3 for your part 1. Okay. Okay, organization, text is connected using basic high-frequency connectors, and language uses basic vocabulary and some degree of control. Okay, so that's how we mark. We get you a 3 for your part 1. Okay, this is for band 4. Okay, this is up to the assessor's judgment whether your performance shares features of scores 3 and 5. Okay, so this is definitely up to the assessors. We do not know what kind of we know what are they looking for band 4, but again, every student is, or every candidate, every script is different. So to get yourself a 4, or perhaps you need to we need to look at your script closely so that we can decide whether you are worthy of 4 or 3. Okay. The same goes with 2. So if we want to award you 2, we need to understand why is it that we are giving you 2 based on the rubric that we have now. Okay, so for band 1, for part 1, is that perhaps you misinterpret of the task, meaning that you didn't quite understand the task. Then it might land you a 1. And target ready is minimally informed, meaning that when we read your essay, we are not sure what you're talking about. We are not sure whether the content is enough for us to understand what you're trying to say. Okay. Communicative achievement, isolated short units about simple and concrete matters. Okay. Organization, production unlikely to be connected, but punctuation and simple connectors and may be used on occasion. In this case, like I mentioned and just now, there are different ways of using and. Okay, some students, they manage to use and also very well, and it can land them even 5 by using that simple punctuation or simple connectors only. But if you are not such strong candidate, you might repeatedly using and also in wrong places. And in this case, because you managed to use and also perhaps correctly in some other places, you can get a band 1 for organization. As for language, you will get a band 1 if you produce basic vocabulary of isolated words and phrases and produces few simple grammatical forms. Okay, right. That's how the scoring goes for part 1. Okay. All right, this is very important. Please, if you can screenshot this, or please, if you can write this down. Okay. For part 1, informal message. Okay, it's always going to be informal. Okay, please make sure that your tone for part 1 would sound informal. Okay, informal here means that when I read your essay, when I read your part 1, your informal message or informal email, it would make me feel that you and this particular person has a very close relationship. Okay, meaning that you have what we call casual casual use of language. Okay, when I say casual, it does not mean that you can use gonna, Gonna. No, doesn't mean that you can use wanna, Wanna. No. Okay, what I meant when we say that the relationship is close is that you can use the contractions. For example, you can use I don't want to, I don't, instead of I do not. Or I won't have to go, so I won't instead of I will not. Okay, so that's what I meant when I said informal message. Okay, do not go beyond all the way to slangs or all those things that perhaps you know, that you think might affect might contribute to the informalness of the message. Okay, so please bear in mind that, right? Also, besides contractions, you can use, for instance, exclamation mark to show how excited you are when appropriate lah. Okay, you can use that in your part 1. Okay, so the relevance to the curriculum. Okay, this is how we measure your ability. Okay, 4.1.2, make and respond to simple requests and suggestions. 4.1.2, explain simple processes. 4.1.3, narrate factual and imagined events and experiences. 4.1.4, express and respond to opinions and common feelings such as happiness, sadness, surprise, and interest. 4.2.1, punctuate written work with moderate accuracy. 4.2.2, spell written work with moderate accuracy. And 4.2.4, begin to use formal and informal registers appropriate to the target audience in familiar situations. Okay, this is what we are testing for part 1. Okay, so I think that most of us missed this part. You need to explain simple processes when it comes to part 1. Okay, I'll show you how you're going to do that. Okay, so when we are reading part 1, okay, okay, you have format, audience, contents, purpose, and subject matter. Okay, so this is the facts are something that you need to bear in your mind when you are writing your essay. Okay, this is something that you already knew: organize, or write, and edit. Okay, this is a formula that I've learned from AJ UK. Okay, right. So this is a formula. Okay, so GR123C. Okay, what does that mean? G is greeting. Okay, hi, dear. Okay, R is response. Okay, response is normally when we respond to an email or a message. Okay, normally for part 1, you are responding an email. You are not initiating an email. Okay, so when you're responding an email, you can use phrases like "I'm glad to hear from you," or "Thanks for writing to me," or "I received your email yesterday." You need to have this kind of expression when you are responding to an email, and it is very important for SPM. Okay, do not just straight away, for instance, dear Anne, I know about the I have the solution about your problem. Okay, you go straight to yada 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 without including this. So it's very important that you need to include all the responses to the email. Okay, so those are the example of expressions to respond to an email. Okay, so 1 to 3 is the content elaborations. Later I'll show you how. And C is closing, cohesive devices, and conjunctions. Okay, closing for informal message. Okay, this is an example. Okay, you can find a lot and lots of it in the Cambridge English website. Okay, I'll show you where you can find all those expressions. Okay, closing, do keep in touch. Looking forward to your next email. I hope to hear from you soon, and thank you for your help, and write back soon. Okay, so the conjunctions here, the cohesive devices, you can use and, but, or, firstly, lastly, initially, or you can use all these things to help you to write your part 1. Okay, so I'm just going to comment on this. Okay, so this is the question that we have just now. You receive an email from your new friend, Amy, who has just moved to your hometown. Okay, who has sent you the email? So in this case, it's Amy lah. Okay. Hi, the school holiday is finally here. Let's go for a picnic with our friends. So why are you replying? Okay, what is the main thing that you have to write about? So here, Amy is talking about a picnic with their friends. Okay, where shall we go and what can we do there? What should we bring? Okay, so there are 3 questions here that you need to answer in your part 1. Where shall we go? Where? Kat mana? What can we do there? Activities. And what should we bring? The items that you can bring to the picnic. Okay, I'll be waiting for your reply. Bye. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you need to include, content that you need to cover in your part 1. Okay, for this task, the candidate needs to respond to simple requests asking him or her to go for a picnic. The request is from a new friend who has just moved nearby, and he or she will have to answer where shall we go, what can we do, and what should we bring. Okay. Okay, as you can see there from this sample. Okay, hi Amy, I'm so glad that you have brought this up as I had nothing planned for the holidays. I'm totally excited and I know just the place for a picnic. We'll be at the Central Park just beside East Road. We could also play ball there as the park is huge. Okay. Don't forget to bring on extra mat to place our foods on just in case I lost mine. Don't worry about the supplies. I can handle them, though you could bring some snacks if you would like to. Okay, the more, the better. I was also thinking that we could have Jack and David's come. Okay, it will be more fun with them around. All right, do update me if something comes up. Right. Okay. So this is how we see how you answer your question. Okay. The first one, Amy is new to your hometown, so you have to tell her the place and where it's situated. So she mentioned about Central Park just beside East Road because she's new, right, to the place, so she needs to be informed where the place is. Okay, and then answer the second question, and then the question here. Okay, in this case, the skills start here: make and respond to simple requests and suggestions, express and respond to opinions and common feelings, narrate factual and imagined events and experiences. However, it's not touched here, it's explain simple processes. Okay, there has been debates about this, whether or not you need to have that in the essay. So to be on the safe side, please, if, for example, in this case, Amy is talking about Central Park just beside East Road, perhaps you need to give Amy a quick direction. Okay, perhaps you can say that, oh, it's just right beside the bank and you can arrive there by taking what road. Okay, so it actually mentions explain simple processes. Okay, so please do not forget about this when you are writing your part 1. Okay, and including all the details given to you, all the details that you need to answer. Okay. Okay, so this is the how we mark. Okay. R is okay. I'm so glad you have brought this up and I had nothing planned for the holidays. This is response. Okay. It will be at Central Park where C1. We'll also play ball there, C2. Don't forget to bring extra mat, C3. Okay. And you could bring some snacks, C3. And we could have Jack and David come there, C3. Okay. All right. To update me if something comes up. 5. So C is closing, G is greeting. Okay. Okay, this is another example. You receive an email from your friend Ali, who is from Selangor. Okay, hi Mona, I'm going to Terengganu this weekend with my family. My parents really wanted to visit the beautiful beaches there. Where would be the best place to go and where to stay? What family activities can we do there? Reply soon and take care. Okay, so this is another example. You can use this layout, greet first, and then you respond. I'm glad to hear from you. I thank you for sending your email. Okay, expressions like that. Okay, task 1, perhaps the detail of where and elaboration. Task 2, what activity, and task 3 just now, and also conclusion. Okay, this is perhaps might help you when you're writing your part 1 to categorize your thoughts in great detail. Okay, so this is how it look like if you use the template. Okay. Hi Ali, I'm glad to hear from you and that you're coming to Terengganu. Okay, referring to your email, I suggest you to go to Pantai Batu Buruk Beach. Okay, I'm sure your parents will love it. Okay, etc. etc. Okay. Okay, that's the final product. Okay, I'm just going to move very quickly to part 2. It's already at 3 o'clock. Okay, right, for part 2, okay, essay task. Okay, this is again, essay task, no choices. You have to answer that one particular question. Okay, but for part 2, we move a bit higher for you to get all 5 for content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. You need to achieve the level of B2. Okay? Okay, for part 2, it is designed to be generally accessible to candidates of most proficiency levels. Okay, part 2 means that the average proficiency level of students. Remember that part 1 is for the weaker candidate. Part 2 is the general masses, the general mass of candidate, meaning the general population of students with the proficiency level. And part 3 later I'll explain to you. Okay, so it will typically require a response, not unlike those candidates experienced in their school context. Okay, so part 1 is a bit personalized. You're talking about your family, your friends, your school, your hobby, everything about you. But for part 2, you are moving a bit further. Okay, so as the level goes higher. Okay, so it could be talking about all those themes that you have learned in Form 4 and Form 5. You have people and culture, financial and consumerism, science and technology. Okay, so you have all those themes that needs to be covered, and it could be asked. One of them could be asked in part 2. Okay, right. So yeah, please get yourself familiarized with the text or even the textbooks that you have in Form 4 and Form 5 to help you to get familiarized better the topic for part 2 normally. Okay. Okay, I don't think I need to explain this anymore. Okay, so this is important. Okay, part 2, formal text. Okay, formal text means that compared to part 1, part 1 is where you are allowed to use contractions, you are allowed to use punctuation, you are allowed to sound very casual. But for part 2, you need to sound formal. Okay, so for part 2, the LS learning standards that we are testing is advantages and disadvantages of ideas, plans, or arrangements. Your ability, okay, to talk about advantages and disadvantages. Okay. Next, explain the main points for and against an idea. Again, quite the same from advantages and disadvantages. Okay, express and respond to real or imagine opinions and feelings. Okay, organize, sequence, and develop ideas. Okay, this one is for your organization. Sequence and develop ideas within a text of several paragraphs on familiar topics and some unfamiliar topics. Okay. You need to punctuate written work with a range of text type with reasonable accuracy. You have to know where to put your full stop, your comma, your semicolon, your hyphen. Okay, you need to show it off your skill to punctuate your writing. Okay, and it's going to be counted for part 2. Again, this goes without saying. You need to be able to spell written work on a range of text types with reasonable accuracy. And lastly, use formal and informal registers appropriate to the target audience. Again, we are focusing on formal register. For part 2, we are focusing on formal registers. Okay, right, let's move on. Okay, so this is how question 2 will look like. I'm sure that you have done this quite a number of times with your teachers. This is just a recap, okay? Your class has been discussing how they spend their money, and your teacher has asked you to write an essay about what you would spend your money on, the one that we talked about just now. Okay, so this highlights 3 main points which candidates need to cover. Okay, what would you like to buy, reasons for your choice, and where do you usually buy these things? Okay, right. They are additionally required to give reasons for their point of view. Again, when you are writing this essay, you are not just answering the question based on the requirement of the prompts. It has to flow like a normal essay, like a conventional essay. Meaning to say that when you talk about what would you like to buy, for instance, you want to buy a new a new Yeezy sneakers. Okay, you have to justify why you are buying this very expensive pair of sneakers and where would you buy these things. Okay, so if only you answer all these three questions, okay, all these three prompts, you would not need a 5 paragraph to do so, right? But these are what we call guidance. Okay, this is guidance, what we want to see in your essay. For instance, you said that you want to buy the sneakers just now. You need to state why. Okay, and then when you are stating why, you can elaborate further. Perhaps you say that your sneakers have damaged and you want to replace it with something new. Okay, so you need to go in detail. Okay, and yeah, I'll show you the examples. Okay, so this is guided essay, and this could be the topics that might be asked. Okay, this is not something that is from LPM. This is something that we come up ourselves. You know, that I think that could be beneficial for you to practice when during your English classes or even your free time. Okay, there are topics like what would you spend your money on, what birthday gift would you buy for your loved one, what about write about part-time job you would like to do, a holiday destination that you would like to go, and write about a pet you would like to get. Okay, and then you can write about sport would you like to take up, and write about talent that you would showcase in a talent competition. So these are the kind of things that could or might be asked, but it could be a good practice for your part 2. Okay, it's the same format: audience, contents, tasks, and subject matter. Okay, so what do we mean by essay? Okay, essay here means a short piece of writing on a particular subject, especially one done by students as part of the work of a course. Okay, so it has to talk about one particular subject. Okay, if for part 1 you're talking about yourself, you're talking about your friends. Part 2, you're talking about a topic, a subject, and you have to focus on that in order to get a strong marks for part 2. Okay, for part 2, we have, for part 1, we have CR123C, right? Okay, GR123C. For part 2, you can try this, ICE123C. Okay, so for content elaboration 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so for I, introduction. Okay, don't forget when you're writing introduction, need to have conjunction, passive devices, etc. Okay, for CE, conjunction, passive devices, as well as others as well. And C, last one is closing. Okay. Okay, this is one of the sample for part 2. Okay, we all need money in order to buy something that we like. Nothing is free in this world. Therefore, when we have money, we need to use it wisely. If it is spent on the things that we don't need, we will waste our money. There are a lot of good and worthy things you can buy. For example, food, clothes, and books. Okay, so this student mentioned about he or she wanted to buy a guitar. Okay, that is prompt 1. Why I want to buy a guitar is because I love the music. 2, and I usually buy my instruments at this music shop called Yamaha. 3. So all the 3 prompts have been addressed. The introduction has been addressed in yellow. Okay, so let's look at how this student, this candidate, elaborate about what would he like to buy. In this case, buy a guitar. Okay, an acoustic guitar has been in my wish list since I started watching song covers on YouTube. I've been dreaming on playing it, but I haven't had enough money to purchase it. So as you can see there, this candidate elaborate further on the item that he wanted to buy. It's because that he has been wanting to buy acoustic guitar because of the song covers on YouTube. He has been dreaming on playing it, but haven't had enough money. Okay, so he wanted to buy a guitar because he loves music. Okay, I know how to play the piano before, but I want to learn something new. Okay, it will be amazing if I get to play more than one instrument. Moreover, if I want to learn how to play the guitar by myself, I can do that by watching tutorials on YouTube. Okay, in that way, I don't have to waste money on guitar lessons. Okay, so this is how the candidate elaborate on why is he buying the guitar. And let's look at the last one. Where will he buy the guitar? a shop called Yamaha because they have good quality instruments, so their price is expensive. But then he further justifies it, meaning that it is worth it because it's better than low quality instruments. Okay. So in a nutshell, very good connectors here, very good cohesive device. In a nutshell, I'd spend my money on guitar because that's what I need to play a new instrument. So the green one here is the closing. So this is how your part 2 should look like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. Okay. Just because they have 3 short prompts doesn't mean that you need to have only 3 paragraphs. You need to have 5 coherent paragraphs to qualify you to get all 5 for content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. So all total 20 marks. Okay. Okay, so this is another good example. Nothing is free in this world, therefore, because it's talking about money, right? So you can use expressions that's related to money. Nothing is free in this world, or money can make the world go round. Okay, so if you know the expressions, it doesn't have to be idioms. Just expressions that are related to the questions that's presented to you, then you can get a good mark out of it. Okay. Therefore, when we have money, we need to use it wisely. We should spend on the things that we need only. Okay. As for me, if I have money, I would like to buy a guitar. An acoustic guitar has been in my wish list. Okay, I've been playing it, but I haven't had money to buy it. Okay, it's quite safe. But excuse me. But if you look at the closing there, in a nutshell, I will spend my money on a guitar because it will make me happy. Maybe I can be a singer, who knows? Okay, so you can change your closing a little bit. Okay, you can spice it up a little bit to make it interesting. Okay, so as you can see there, this candidate is using quite a variety of punctuation. It's quite effective too, as you can see there, the hyphen there, and also the question mark. It is permissible, but make sure that they are correct when you are trying to get experimental with your punctuation for part 2. Okay, so basically your essay for part 2, you need to have opening paragraph, introduction, task 1, elaboration, task 2, elaboration, task 3, elaboration, and closing paragraph. Okay, so this, again, we are moving forward, we are moving beyond the LPM suggested essay. Okay, you could be asked something like this. Okay, your class has been discussing how teenagers normally spend their leisure time. Your teacher has asked you to write an essay about the activity most teenagers love to do as their pastime. Okay, in your essay, you should write about what kind of activity do teenagers enjoy most, give reasons why they enjoy it, and when do they normally carry out the activity. Okay. All right, using all the notes and giving reasons for your point of view. Okay, you can talk about, again, this is using ICE 1, 2, 3, C. I is introduction. CE means cohesive devices, and 1, 2, 3 is the task, and C is the closing. Okay. So the intro would be, our class has been discussing how teenagers normally spend their leisure time. Our teacher has asked us to write an essay about the activity most teenagers love to do as their pastime. Okay, in our last lesson in last week. Okay. Okay, first and foremost, again, quite good cohesive device. I would like to share about the activity teenagers enjoy, which most of it play online games. Okay. I'm hearing a thunder. I hope that my internet connection is not going to be affected by this. Let's pray that. Okay, I'm positive about this because it has become a trend among them. So see here is the cohesive device. In this case, the cohesive device are first and foremost, and C is because for this next paragraph. Okay, so all right, C2 reason 1, make us mentally active. Okay, the first reason is playing online games makes teenagers' mind mentally active. Okay, in brief, most games generally have various levels to be completed in a limited time. Subsequently, they learn about time management. Okay, let me just turn on the lights first. Okay, my apologies. Like I mentioned, it's starting to rain, so let me just continue. Okay. In addition, teenagers learn to become socially active by playing games, and without any doubt, they interact and play with strangers online. These are two reasons why they like to play online games. Okay.
Teacher,
Okay. Yes.
can I ask what mean in brief and subsequently?
Okay. All right. In brief, just look at the slides again. Okay. In brief means in short, secara ringkasnya. Okay. Subsequently means akibatnya, or no. Consequently is akibatnya. Subsequently ni macam selepas itu. Macam after that lah. It's almost like after that. Okay. Subsequently, we use subsequently when we want to talk about processes. Consequently, when we want to talk about cause and effect. Okay. Right. Any other questions? I'm sorry, I'm going through very fast. Any other questions?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Okay. So the next paragraph is normally teenagers will play online games every day. On the whole, they used to play games a day. So normally means, you know what normally means, right? On the whole means secara amnya. Okay. Although teenagers enjoy playing online games, they still need to manage their time well. So although is something you use quite frequently, right? Although it's like walaupun, okay. Okay. So this is the whole essay. It's 164 words. Okay, so again, opening paragraph, don't forget introduction. Task 1, elaboration. Task 2, elaboration. Task 3, elaboration. Closing paragraph and conclusion. Okay, later I'm going to show you where that you can find all these questions. I use this with my students. This is something that we use beyond the syllabus that we have, because sometimes you know, the syllabus can be quite limiting and it's quite predictable, quite boring in fact. So we tried to do something different. Here we talk about fashion industry. In your English class, we have been talking about the fashion industry. Okay, you can write an essay using all the notes and giving reasons for your point of view. Okay, so when you are trying to find topics to what we call practice on, when you Google it up, you can try to Google B2 FCE essay. Okay, you can use this keyword. I've put that in the chat section. You can use this keyword to help you to find a good practice of B2 essay for you to, you know, to try before you sit for your SPM. I'm sure you have other resources as well, but if you're into internet, you can use that for your own time. Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry because it's raining. Okay, it's raining really heavily here. All right, I'm trying my best to get my presentation done. Okay, all right. Okay, so I mentioned just now, part one is the informal message, informal email. Part two, an essay. We're talking about one topic. Part three is an extended writing. All those essays have the full mark of 20 marks. Okay, means that extended writing is 200 to 250 words. Okay, 3 tasks, candidates choose one. Okay, you include an article, you write an article, or perhaps a review or a report. Okay. And then you have to explain these advantages and disadvantages. We talked about it just now. Okay, very important. You need to know the language of using advantages and disadvantages. Okay. And explain the main points for and against an idea. Same, just like part two. Real and imagined opinions. Organize, sequence, develop ideas. Punctuate written work. Spell written work. And use formal and informal registers. Okay, so extended writing, it depends on the writing. If it's, I would suggest you that you stick to the formal use of language. For instance, for article, stick to formal tone. If you are talking about review, okay, review is a bit tricky. It can be semi-formal, semi-informal. Okay, so again, it depends on how well you are mixing those two. For story, of course, there will be a mix of formal and informal language. So you need to know where to use proper informal and formal language for your story. Okay, part three, example task. Okay, this one is article, the one that we talked about just now. Article about school canteen. Okay. All right, it can be about music and me. Okay, so school canteen is about you improving the state of your canteen, of your school's canteen. Okay, for music and me, so you can talk about music here, but it's still in the form of article. Okay, when do you listen to music? How do you choose what to listen at different times? And write us an article answering these questions. Okay, the best articles will be posted on our website. Okay, so that would be article. Report. Okay, report could be to tell someone, an authority, that something has happened, especially an accident or a crime. It doesn't have to be an accident or a crime. It could be a report about how to improve the tourist attraction at your hometown, for instance. Okay, so that's how you would do it for report. Okay, or it could be a group of British teachers is going to visit your college for 2 days. Okay. Your report should include information about how technology is used to teach different subjects and recommend which lessons the teacher should watch to see technology being used. Okay, this is the example task for review. Okay, have you watched any interesting movies lately? Send us your movie review. Okay, the one that I mentioned just now. Okay, okay, let me just check what's going on. Okay, your response need to be 200 to 250 words. Okay, explain advantages and disadvantages, but when you are talking about movie review and etc. Okay. Okay. The first thing that you need to do is that you need to provide an appropriate title to the review. Okay, so when you are writing a review, do not forget to write the title. You can just write the movie title, or you can be creative about it. Perhaps you want to have a play on words of the title, the Avengers Endgame. Is it really an endgame? Something like that. Okay. Provide an interesting introduction to to gauge the reader's attention. Okay, always try to start your first sentence with a question. I mean, this is personal choice. If this is something that you're comfortable to do, please do so. Okay. Would you enjoy staying in a beautiful place with lots of exciting things to do? Again, a review doesn't have to be about film review. It could be about a book review, or it could be a destination review. Okay, so it can be a lot of things. Okay, and then are you wondering what movie should you watch next? And do you always like to change your mobile phone every time they have the latest version? Okay, so this one is reviewing a product. Okay. And then you need to organize your content into two parts, description and discussion. Okay, description, for instance, if you're talking about a movie, you need to describe perhaps the highlight of the movie, the best part of the movie, or perhaps how beautiful the soundtrack is. Okay. And then after that, you need to discuss. Discuss here means that because you have described all these things when it comes to movie, you need to discuss whether the soundtrack, for example, works for that movie or not. Is it suitable for that movie or not? Or perhaps if the cinematography works well for that film or movie. Okay. And then number 5, stick to the question and do not talk about unrelated things. And number 6, use adjectives and adverbs to make it more interesting to read. Okay, so when you're giving opinion, okay, this is quite important when it comes to giving opinion about a review of any kind. So you can use these expressions, okay? In my opinion, or in my view, or for me, or I think, or believe, or feel that, or I would say that, and it seems to me that, okay? Number 8, provide a recommendation in the last part of your review, okay? I would recommend this movie to my friends because yada yada yada, or because blah 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 blah. Okay. And then you can use specific language to give recommendations. Okay. I recommend or suggest the title to who. Okay. I recommend or suggest ing, or I recommend suggest watching. I recommend suggest going to a destination, or I recommend or suggest reading this book because. Okay. I recommend or suggest that what. Okay. And then you can use something quite simple. If you're not very comfortable with complex language, you can use you should watch this movie because, or you might want to read this book because, and then you can write a final sentence to conclude the review. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, let me just try to let me just try to get back to the slides that I want to be. A second. Okay, these are the recommendation of phrases that you can use for expressions. Okay, when you are writing a film review. Okay, you can talk about this book of film. Okay, would be absolutely perfect for. Okay, or you can talk about. I would have no hesitation in recommending this book of film or restaurant to. In conclusion, I recommend this book of film restaurant to anyone who I would highly strongly recommend. I strongly advise you to. Everyone should give it a try or should try it. As you can recommend, I strongly advise you against or not to. You should probably give what a miss. Okay, so these are the expressions when you can use when you are giving recommendation, or perhaps you are stopping people from going to that place or watching that movie, or perhaps read that book. Okay, you can screenshot this to help you to write a movie review later. Okay, so we're moving to part 3 already. Example task, a dream comes true. Okay, so in the beginning of your story, you should introduce your characters. Okay, the reader should also know the world of the characters live in, meaning the setting. Is it what we call a typical Malay village setting, or is it the year of 3050, whereby everything is just so cutting edge and modern and high tech, and you're living in such different world then? Okay, and there's something about each of the characters in your story. Okay. The beginning of your story is also the place where your plot or the problem is first introduced. Okay, all right, so your story needs to build to something exciting, the climax. Okay, write about simple conflict, a task that must be completed, a question that must be answered, or a barrier that must be overcome. So you need to have your beginning, rising action, climax, and resolution. Okay, regarding this layout, I know that some of you are quite good storytellers, meaning that you are very good in using flashbacks. Okay, in using flashbacks, or perhaps in using flashbacks, or what we call, sometimes you want to use like a time loop. Okay, you just turn off the camera first because something is really not right. Okay, so what you can do there is that although you are very good in using time loop, or perhaps you know what time loop is. Time loop is when you have what we call a groundhog day. You have how many of you have watched Happy Death Day, where things are happening the same thing at the same time, and it has been repeatedly happening. Okay, so that is what we call a time loop. Okay. So what happens when we have a time loop is that you need to be able to use what we call mixture of tenses. And when you are using mixture of tenses, it will be very difficult for you to keep track how to get everything correctly. So my advice to you and to all my students that I've given is that you need to be able to be really technical and really good with your language if you want to get creative with the flow of your story. Okay? It has to be very skillful for you to pull out all those what we call creative changes in a story. Okay, so I would recommend you to stick with the layout. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so in the middle, you could have all the actions or dialogues or sensory details, thoughts and feelings. Okay, the suspense, remember to build to a climax. Okay, that is how your middle of the story should look like. Okay, so the end, this is the big finish. Okay, the end should reveal how you overcame your problem. All conflicts are resolved and everything goes back to normal. Okay, so this is how you should plan your story. Okay, you should start with introduction. Okay, body 1. Okay, Introduction normally is talking about setting of a place, time, introduce characters. Body 1. Okay. Body 1 is normally you introduce the conflict or the problem. So the beginning of the story is in body 1. Body 2 is you're describing some actions towards solving the problem. Okay, so, and then body 3, you can use describe or explain the climax, how the problem is finally solved. And conclusion, you can describe what happens after or the resolution. Okay, don't forget to mention why it is unforgettable. If you're talking about unforgettable story lah. Okay, so if you can see that, the cohesive device is quite important, very important in planning a story. So, the introduction there, once upon a time, in the beginning, one day, okay, next, after that, and finally, okay, in the end. Okay, right, how to begin your story? Okay, when you start a story, if the first sentence isn't given to you, you can use phrases like this. It all began, or when I first, or at the beginning, or it was a hot, cold summer or winter day. Okay, just to be clear, these are only some simple examples which you can use. Okay, when writing a story, there is no right or wrong way to write a story. Okay, I'm not supposed to say this, but let's just keep this between us. When we are sitting with external examiners, okay, all this, what we call masalih, all these Cambridge people, they would actually love to see a student write a story. Because when you're writing a story, you are showing your creativity, okay? And when you're showing your creativity, it shows your imagination. And when it shows your imagination, it will also show your critical thinking, okay? That's why this is not official, but it's clear that the Cambridge people, they prefer you to write a story, okay? But like I said, story can also be a dangerous thing. Although it's something that they would love, I would suggest you to go for the question that you know that you can write about, okay? Do not push yourself to write a story if you are not sure how or what the question meant in an exam, okay? When it comes to a story, okay? Okay, when writing a story, you need to pay careful attention to the time over which the story develops, okay? In order to define the order of the events in the story, we must use time expression or time phrases, okay? So time phrases would include then, after that, not long afterwards, as soon as, while, meanwhile, as, a few minutes later, or a moment later, that morning or day, and just then, sometime later. Okay. Okay, creating a suspense. Okay, it's almost 4 now. I haven't gone into speaking yet. Okay, when writing a story, the aim is not to inform or to convey information. The real purpose is to entertain the reader. Okay, just like when you read a novel, you expect to be entertained. Okay, for this reason, a story should aim to do so, entertain. And a cool way to entertain is to create suspense. Okay. So this is what I meant by why Cambridge people like people to write stories, because they expect to be entertained by the story. And compared to review or perhaps the article, those are meant to inform or to assess a movie or to review a movie. But for story, it's mainly to entertain, untuk menghiburkan pembaca. Okay, so again, it's really up to you on how you're going to entertain your readers. Okay, suddenly, all of a sudden, without warning. So this is how you create suspense. Okay, I know that you know a lot of this already. Okay, and then direct speech, the dialogue. I know my students like to use dialogues as well. They think that it makes their make their writing longer, but that's not the reason we are having direct speech. Okay, direct speech is for the effect of having an immediate reaction. Okay, so direct speech, you need to use, again, you need to be careful with the tenses used for direct speech. Okay. Okay, so this is how you use direct speech. Okay, I'm coming with you. Okay, I'm coming with you, she said. Or she said, I'm coming with you. Do you like it? He asked. Or don't do it, he screamed. Or watch out, he shouted. Okay. Okay, so concluding, finishing your story in the end, finally, okay, you know all this already. And verb tenses, one of the reasons why stories are particularly challenging for students is that they tend to take place in the past, which makes it necessary to use a range of past tenses appropriately. Okay, so you need to be able to use past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Okay, those are the examples of past simple and continuous, past perfect and simple, and past simple. Okay, so I know that it's easy to have a simple succession of past simple tenses alone like this. Okay, I woke up and got out of bed, and then I went to the kitchen and made some coffee. Although they are grammatically correct, but it's just not good enough for a story. You can use this, but do not use it that frequently in your story. But if this is something that you're only able to do because of your language proficiency, it's fine. If you're comfortable with this and you can get the correct out of this, okay? But if you are good in your language, please venture out something more challenging. That's how you get better marks for your story. Okay. Okay, these are the types of question that or the topic that you might see. Okay, you might see in your exam. Okay. Not the direct topic, but it will revolve around somewhat around here. Okay. Okay, so this is the website, English profile. If you want to know the level of the words, the level of a CFR for the words there. Okay, you can see there. B1, A2, C2, okay? Okay, I think this is quite important too. Okay, for form 4. Okay, as you can see there, this is highlighted. Okay, express and respond to opinions and common feelings such as amusement, anger, and regret. Okay, form 5, explain advantages and disadvantages of ideas, plans, or arrangements. Okay. So you need to be able to fulfill all the objectives for writing for form 4 and form 5. Okay. All right. I think we are done with writing. Before I move on to speaking, any questions? Do you have any questions?
No.
No? How about the rest? No questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I think I'll move on to the next part. Okay, let me just share with you the tab first. Okay. Okay, right. So this is the structure of our workshop. I'm going to be very fast because I've already taken up so much time for writing, because I think that writing is quite challenging for this year, especially for part 3. But never mind, we are going to do this together. Please, I hope that when I start calling out your names, you are not going to leave the meeting, because I think this is a good practice for you with me, so that you can have your speaking skill improved by talking to people. The only thing that you can do when you are doing your speaking test is that you need to practice. Speaking cannot be practiced by reading or writing. Speaking has to be practiced by speaking. So if you have a friend who's quite good in English, or even if he or she is not good in English but is willing to practice with you, then it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so I'm going to be very fast. We have background expectations here. Okay, and then we have 3 parts of speaking test and how speaking is assessed. Okay. Okay, for speaking, you are here, B1 mid and B1 high. We are not moving to B2 or even C1 for speaking. See, the LPM is very nice to you. Only for writing, we are moving towards C1. But for speaking, we only expect you to be at B high. Okay. Okay, right. So that is the level. Okay, so for speaking, you're expected to be deal with most situations likely to arise when traveling in an area where the language is spoken. So when you are in Form 5, okay, we expect you to be able to use the language. For example, if you are going to further your study for medicine in Ireland, or even your engineering in Liverpool, for example, you'll be able to use English well where the place that English is spoken. It could be in UK, it could be in the US, or even the New Zealand or Australia. You are not expected to talk like them. It's just that you'll be able to functionally use the language perhaps when you are there. Okay? Right, you can describe experiences or events or dreams, hopes and ambitions, and briefly give explanations for opinions and plans. Okay, for B2, this is if you want to get comfortable to get a high mark lah. Okay, for B2, you can interact with the degree of fluency and spontaneity that makes regular interaction with native speakers quite possible. Again, spontaneity is the key word here. Okay, I've been trained that during the exams, you cannot bring any form of pencil or paper to help you prepare for your oral exam. So you have to be quite spontaneous when it comes to speaking exam for SPM. Okay. Okay, there are roles in the speaking exam: interlocutor, the assessor, and the 2 candidates, candidate A and candidate B. Okay. So as you can see there, if you still remember your PT3 speaking exam, it's almost quite the same. Okay, interlocutor here, candidate A, candidate B, and assessor. Okay, the interlocutor should sit in front of the 2 candidates who are set side by side. The assessor should sit to one side near enough so that they can see and hear anything clearly. Okay. Okay, this is how it will look like. Okay, so the assessor is going to be a teacher from a nearby school. Okay, so the assessor would be appointed by Sektor Peperiksaan JPNJ. Okay, it could be me, who knows, right? Because it's from a nearby school. It's not going to be a teacher from your school. Okay, the interlocutor, it's going to be a teacher from your own school. It could be any of the English teachers who's teaching again, my apologies for my internet connection here. It's really heavily here, and I do not know why it is affecting my call, because normally it doesn't. I hope you bear with me. I didn't expect this to happen. It was really hot and sunny today. Okay, so we are moving. I want to show you a video, but I think it's a bit late. But okay, let me just finish up with the presentation, then we'll do a video. Okay. I'm not sure if you have seen it before. Okay. Okay. So for the interlocutor is a teacher from your school. He or she will assess overall spoken performance, and the assessor, he or she will assess the grammar and vocabulary as well as communicative competence. Okay, when we say grammar and vocabulary, you know what it means, right? But communicative competence, it's meant about your communication skill. Okay, when you are speaking, whether you can express yourself very well, or perhaps whether you can give ideas and share your thoughts fluently, or even you can use specific strategies very well. Okay, so the speaking paper would be in pack format, 3 parts. Interview, the first one is interview. Second, individual long term based on text or verbal prompt. And the third one, discussion with partner based on mind map stimulus and further discussion task. Okay, the time given is approximately 13 minutes, and CFR main focus B1 and until B2. Okay, so part 1, interview interlocutors, interviews candidates, and interlocutor frame provides all questions for interlocutor, and responding to questions and giving factual about self, by data, or talking about present circumstances, or expressing opinions, explaining and giving reasons, and talking about future plans and talking about past experience. So part 1 is 3 to 4 minutes only. Okay, so part 1, it could be about questions like, where do you live, or how do you come to school, or where do you usually do after you wake up? Okay, and what do you do on weekends? Okay, just a quick tips when it comes to part 1. Okay, you can make candidates feel comfortable. Okay, so part 1, your teacher will try to do that. And then this is where you can prepare the candidates mentally. Okay, so part 1 is mostly like you warming up to the interlocutor. Okay, you try to feel as comfortable as possible to go through part 2 and part 3 with that interlocutor. Okay, so part 1 has 2 phases. Okay, phase 1, you're talking about yourself. Okay, phase 2, you're going to talk about familiar and simple topic. For example, your hobby, your best friend, favorite food, subject, or song. So for phase 1, it's not going to be assessed yet, but you're going to be started to assess for phase 2. Okay. All right. So for part 1, for phase 1, it's something very simple. For instance, the interlocutor would ask, "What's your name?" And then, "Where do you live?" or "Where you come from?" or "How do you come to school?" Okay. So we do have backup prompts. For instance, for weaker candidates who do not know what to say, we can help to support them by having backup prompts such as, "Should I call you?" or "Do you live in?" or "Do you come to school by?" Okay. Okay, I want to try phase 2 with the student. Let me check if we can find. Okay. Okay, I want to try phase 2 with the student. Can I have Amir Afzan? Amir Afzan, are you there? Amir Afzan? No? Can we have Azia Shazwina? Are you there? Okay, how about Rauda? Rauda Nasuha. Are you here? Okay, seems that Rauda, can you turn on your mic so that I can talk to you? Hi, Rauda, can you turn on your mic? My mic has a problem. Okay. You know what? This is I'm starting to feel like it's a trick. When students say mic has a problem, because this is something that I've always encountered when my students do not want to answer the questions. Okay. I'm sure that I can find a volunteer here. Anybody wants to volunteer for this one? Wants to try this with me?
Me, teacher.
Okay, Alini, thank you. Thank you for your cooperation, Alini. Okay, I'm going to try this with you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you about your best friend. Okay. Do you have a best friend, Alini?
Yes, I have my best friend.
Okay. What's your best friend's name?
My best friend name is Amni Balkis.
Okay. Where did you meet Ami Balkis for the first time?
I meet Amni Balkis when I at Form 1 because she is my classmate.
Okay. What do you like about her?
I like her because she is short and cute. And she always be nagging, but when she nagging, she looks so cute, and I love to hear her nagging.
Okay. All right. Last question. How do you honor him or her, or what do you do to show that you appreciate this friend of yours?
Uh, can you repeat, teacher?
Okay, how do you show to your friend here that you appreciate her?
Uh, how I appreciate her is um, I will help her when he need me. Example, like now, her line connection is trouble. So it's trouble. So if he need some notes or something else, I will share with her.
Okay, thank you, Alini.
Later.
That's quite a good response from you. So, as you can see there, for phase 2, there has how do I say this? There has not been a question specifically for any of that yet. Okay, so this is going to be depending on the booklet that the interlocutor received. Okay, so thank you, Alini, for that. Let's move on. Okay, for part 2, okay, individual long-term tasks. Okay, so for individual long-term, we're going to talk about past, present, or future experience, explaining and giving reasons, and expressing and justifying opinions. Okay, and also describe people, places, and situations. Okay, for long-term, okay, For this part, you need to talk as much as possible, meaning to say that for each of the candidate, you are given 1 to 2 minutes to talk. I would suggest my students to talk in maximum for 2 minutes straight. Okay? So individual long term, it's as if you are talking on your own. Based on the topic that you are given, then you are going to talk about it without any interruption from your partner. Okay? All right, let's see if we can try this out with you. Okay. All right, so for part 2, the testing focuses is giving information of a non-personal kind, because you have a topic that you need to talk about, and then you talk about past or present, future, or past, present, or future experience, explaining and giving reasons, expressing and justifying opinions, describing people, places, and situations, speculation, naming personal characteristics, objects, and activities, and paraphrasing words and ideas if necessary. Okay, so the format is A speaks on a topic, B listens, B respond to teacher's question on topic 1, and B speak on topic 2. Okay, I think I need 2 candidates to try, 2 students to try this one. Okay, it's about 1, a festival, and 2, a memorable holiday. Okay, I'm not going to call out names. Any volunteers except Alini, because Alini tried this one just now. Any other volunteers? I need 2 volunteers for this one. Anyone? Alia Madiha, are you here? Alia?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Do you want to be? Can you be candidate A?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Azri, are you here? Azri, Muhammad Azri. I need a boy. Muhammad Azri, are you here? Muhammad Azri. Okay. Fakihul. Fakihul, are you here? Okay, Amni Balkis.
Teacher, Ami Baki has a problem.
Yes, problem. Okay.
Teacher, I can.
Cool. Okay. All right. So Alia Madiha and Amni, Okay. Alia, you would be candidate A, and Amni, you would be candidate B. Okay, I'm going to give you 20 seconds to prepare, and then we are going to start after 20 seconds. Would that be okay, Alia and Amni? Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Alia, ready? Alia Madiha, ready?
Ready, teacher.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about a festival you had celebrated recently. Okay. Alia, you should say what festival it was, how you celebrated it, if you enjoyed yourself, why or why not, and why celebrating festivals is important in Malaysia. Okay, whenever you're ready, Alia, go.
Festival that I had celebrate is Eid Mubarak. Every year I went to my village at Johor Bahru, and I will celebrate with my biggest family, with my uncle and auntie. When on during the Eid Mubarak,
Okay, during the Eid Mubarak, Alia. Okay. Any other? Do you want to add anything, Alia?
During the Eid Mubarak, we cook together. Uh, any uh, any food like ketupat, rendang, and lemang.
Okay. Anything else, Alia? No. Anything else?
I enjoy with my family during the Eid Mubarak. We take a photo and enjoy our meal.
Okay, last one. Why celebrating festivals is important in Malaysia? Why do you think it's important?
Celebrating festival is too important in Malaysia because we know about uh,
You know about?
any tradition and
Any tradition and? Okay, I think that's all from Alia. Amni, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, talk about a memorable holiday you had at local destination. You should say where you went for that holiday, what did you do then, and why the holiday was memorable. And lastly, if you think it is good for people to go on holiday at the local destination and why not. Okay, Amni, you may start.
First of all, I think the most memorable holiday I had is last year. When the COVID is still controllable. I went to Terengganu for that holiday. I went to Kelantan for that holiday. Um, after one day I stayed Kelantan because that is my hometown. I went to Terengganu and start our holiday with uh we went to Jambatan Angkat at Terengganu and take some photos there and go to beach and
Okay, why was the holiday memorable, Amni?
why was the holiday memorable? Because that is the last holiday with my whole family and at my hometown.
Okay. And if you think it is good for people to go on holiday at local destination, why or why not?
I think it's good for the Malaysian to go on holiday at local destination because we can increase our economy situation and we can learn more about our country in that holiday, such as like our asset or traditional culture of Malaysia.
me exiting the, because I just lost the connection. All right, so thank you for Amni and Alia who managed to share their thoughts on a festival and also a memorable holiday. Okay, so that's how it would work for part 2. Okay, so you are going to talk in extensively lah. So what I missed there is when you have a candidate, for instance, candidate A finished talking about a festival, for instance, just now, it was Alia who finished talking about the festival. I need to ask Amni just one question, a very general question about festival. Perhaps, Amni, who would you celebrate your festival with? And after Amni perhaps completed her memorable holiday question, I need to ask Alia to answer me perhaps where would you go for your last memorable holiday, okay, etc. So that's how that will work for part 2. Okay. Okay, for band 6 for C1 level, okay. Okay, so you have to consistently maintain a high degree of grammatical accuracy. Okay, I'm just going to give you what Alia and, that's just an example, what does Alia and Amni stands, okay, for just now, because when you're speaking, both Alia and Amni would score a 4 for grammar and vocabulary, and communicative competence is also a 4. So the other 6 marks that you could get is from the overall spoken performance, and normally you would get a 4 as well for that kind of speaking, that kind of what we call discourse. Okay, so it's 4 times 4, it's 16 over 24. So the full mark for speaking is 24. So please make sure that you can get at least a 20 over 24 to get a solid A for your SPM. Okay, so these are the topics that might be covered in your SPM paper for speaking. Okay, so when you are in part 2, especially when you are giving elaboration, okay, you need to have where, what, how, who, why, and when. Okay, I haven't talked about part 3. Okay, part 3 is whereby you're talking with your partner and it's a discussion. Okay, you could be given a graphic organizer or what we call a mind map, and you have to discuss with your partner. And after you have discussed with your partner, you need to come to a decision, meaning to say that you need to have a final decision of what do you think what decision should come when it comes to speaking. Okay, so let me just share what kind of things that you can talk about when it's speaking for part 3. Okay, let me just find if I can find the file. And better prices. Okay, so you can saving with quick elaboration, and candidate B will talk about wide variety, convenient, and better prices. And after that, they must come to a decision whether what is the one thing that perhaps why people shop online. Okay, again, for part 3 is also 3 to 4 minutes. So 2 minutes for each of the candidate. Okay. Okay, so that's about it for part 3. Okay. Okay, so that's the one that I talked to you just now. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to give you a quick tip on how to score your SPM speaking. Okay. Okay, so you can use the WH questions: where, what, who, when, how, and why. Okay, so right, I'm just going to practice this with you because we have, oh, it's 4:30 already. Yeah, I think that we can do this, you can do this together for 1 or 2 questions. Let's try to this one. Okay, so there are phrases of agreeing and disagreeing. I like to use this with my students to encourage their spontaneity. Okay, so I want them to be spontaneous in their speech. Okay, because I think that we've spent so much time on preparing speech until we forgot that speaking has to be spontaneous. Okay, so there are expressions using I completely agree with you. You're absolutely right. I agree 100%. I think you're right about that. I feel exactly the same, or that's my opinion too. Okay, that is for agreeing. For disagreeing, you have expressions like I disagree, oh, I don't agree, I totally disagree, I don't think so, I think you are or might be wrong about that, I wouldn't say that because, or I don't think that's the case because. Okay, so you have a point, but I see what you mean, but. Okay, so partially agree or partially disagree. Okay, can I have one volunteer for this one? Anybody before we close up our session? Anybody? Anybody that wants to volunteer for? Okay, let's try. Ladies should find rich husbands. Anybody wants to try that topic? Whether you agree or disagree with the statement. Anybody that wants to try that? Any volunteers? Come on, the sooner we start, the sooner we finish. Anybody? Okay, let's see. Hakimi, are you here? Mama Hakimi, are you here? No? Aina Amira, are you here? Auni Atika? Not here. Okay, Zarifa. Anybody? Zarifa, is Zarifa here?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, Zarifa, can we try the statement of ladies should find rich husbands?
Alright. I agree with the statement ladies should find rich husbands because as a woman, we need a place to, we need a stable place as we live because we never know what's going to happen in the future. So the stability of a man is really important because because if we have a children, so we can afford to give them a very comfortable place, a very comfortable place so they can have a comfort to live in. The next thing is the next thing is like this. Why I agree on this statement also is women had always been struggle. If we see a lot of cases with the man cannot give them a very enough place after getting married, so we have to find a, if I would say it's not a rich but a stable, a man who has a stability to give us a very comfort places and enough money so that we can have a very lovely and harmonious family in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input. I can see that there's some sort of maturity in your what we call in your oral discourse or in your spoken discourse. And if I were your assessor that day, you would not have problems to get at least 20 over 24. Okay, so that's how we assess your oral discourse. Okay, so I think that that should end the session for today. Okay, my apologies that I should have come sooner. Okay, I'm not. I thought it started at 2:30, but it's not actually. But it's fine. So I'm ending my session. Any Q&A? Any questions before we end our session? Any questions?
I think there's no question.
No questions at all. You're that confident for your SPM. Okay, that's a good sign. All right. With that, I think I should pass this session back to your teacher. Okay, Mr. Shafiq, I think I'm done. Do you want to close this out for us? Okay, I think I'm assuming that everyone's already quite done with the whole session. Thank you for coming in, and I'll share the recording to your teacher so that anybody who's not here can watch the recording. With that, thank you and bye everyone.
Thank you, teacher.
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 Thank you, teacher.